Good evening, and welcome to the regularly scheduled Clawson City Council meeting of Tuesday, February 20th. This meeting is now called to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Father, thank you for the blessings you have provided us as individuals, as families, and as organizations that fashion our city and state into a community of those who care and share with each other. We pray for all those who guide and govern. Help them and us to know and do the things that are right and fair in making vital decisions. Save us from violence, discord, and confusion, from pride and arrogance. May there be peace and justice at home. Each day brings new challenges, and we give thanks for the opportunity and ability to problem solve through prayer, thought, and action. Please keep watch over our military, veterans, law enforcement, and other safety services. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call, please. Here.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffitt?
Here.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Here.
The first thing on the agenda is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. The minutes of a regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, February 6th, and the minutes of a special city council closed session meeting held on Tuesday, February 13th.
Mayor, I move the consent agenda be approved as listed.
Support.
Any questions about the consent agenda? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffitt?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes. The next item is a presentation by Sergeant Kelly Baus from the Clawson Police Department on the 9th Annual Bowl-a-thon fundraiser.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm here today to present some information to you guys on the 9th Annual Bowl-a-thon Scholarship Fundraiser. In 2010, the police department did a scholarship program for high school students in Clawson to recognize students who are pursuing a career within the criminal justice system. So what we do is we organize a bowl-a-thon every year. It's our one and only fundraiser to support this program. And the money that we raise from the bowl-a-thon through business sponsorships and through community members participating in bowling, we award to graduating seniors who apply. To date, we have raised nearly $40,000 and have awarded 20 college scholarships to students from the Clawson community. This year, our 9th Annual Bowl-a-thon is going to be held on Saturday, March 3rd. It's at 9:30 p.m. with an 8:45 check-in. We do have a new venue this year. It's going to be held at Astro Lanes, which is located in Madison Heights at 14 Mile and John R. The cost to bowl is $25 per person if you come at the door. We do accept pre-registrations of individuals and teams, and that makes the cost $20 per person if you pre-register. We are accepting pre-registrations through the end of this week, and we are also accepting business sponsorships. Each year, we usually have between 40 and 50 businesses throughout Clawson, Troy, Royal Oak area that support our bowl-a-thon. Some businesses make a tax-deductible cash donation, and that goes directly to the scholarship. And other businesses donate an item from their business or a service or a gift card, which we raffle off at the bowl-a-thon each year so that community members participating can receive some type of award, and then it also gives back to the community because they're going to then frequent a Clawson business. The day of the bowl-a-thon, like I said, there will be the silent auction, we call it, which is raffling off the gift cards from the businesses or other services. We also have a 50-50 that day, and the $20 that you pay to register or bowl covers 2 games of bowling and shoes, pizza, and pop. We also do a small door raffle. Like I said, all donations are tax deductible. If anybody would like to mail a check to the city of Clawson for the program instead of participating, they are more than welcome. We accept cash donations made out to the Clawson Rotary Club, and in the memo line, you need to put the police scholarship program. Other than that, people can pre-register by contacting me via email. We also have flyers throughout City Hall and at our police records window that look like this, and it has all the information on it. It also has pre-registration form, and we do have business sponsorship forms as well. Any questions?
I just want to encourage people, if they want to do that, they need to register early, because if you wait, there isn't any spots available.
Yeah,
It's a very popular event.
we are starting to fill up. We do have some lanes still available, but yeah, we usually average anywhere from 100 to 150 bowlers a year. So
It's a great event.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for doing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
The next item on the event is the introduction and presentation from the Oakland County United FC soccer program.
My name is Nick Marana, and this is Ben Rohde. I'm here with my other co-owner, Theo Futris, and we are Oakland County Football Club. You can just remove the United. We are a semi-professional soccer team. We have college players, college coaches, and essentially we are, if you would compare with like a minor league baseball team, we're that for the soccer aspect of it. So we don't play our players. We're more community focused. We're more niche based. Sorry, I'm a bad public speaker, so you're just gonna have to.
You're doing great.
You're gonna have to fight. You're gonna have to struggle with me. Long story short, we used to play at Stony Creek High School over in Rochester. We averaged around 300, 350 fans a game. It was going really well. It got to the point where we had a lot of our own friends saying, you know, that's really a far ride up there Saturday nights. Would you guys ever contemplate moving south? And we actually did a survey at the end of the year. We had a lot of people actually saying, you know what, it might be beneficial if you guys move south, because if you guys ever do get a little bit bigger, it's just going to be a little bit hard to expand, because everything north of Rochester is considered rural north of Tinkin. So we reached out to a lot of places. Unfortunately, we never looked at Clawson because we didn't know Clawson had a stadium field. Now we know that. We ended up going with Royal Oak High School. It was more local, close to 75, close to 696. And it was a great year. We had a great year last year. We had food trucks at our matches, face painting, a DJ. It's a really community-focused event. I mean, we had one game where we had 700 people. And at this level, I don't know if you guys follow the soccer pyramid, but there's 4 levels of the soccer pyramid. One of the lowest level under us is amateur, and getting 700 at a game for us is like almost like unheard of. So we thought that was really cool. We thought what we're doing is great for the community. We have really a lot of passion in what we do. We just try our best to connect with the community. So for last year, we went into a school or two. We talked to some kids. We did a fundraiser event when we were in Rochester. We tried as much to get community folks with the schools as possible. We have business sponsorships, so we walked into every business. We gave a little spiel about ourselves, and a lot of businesses were all about us. They brought people to the game. We had like a deal with them with our season ticket cards. I could go on and on about that. But unfortunately, what happened is towards the end of last year, well, it's not really unfortunate. Actually, it's fortunate for Royal Oak that they got a huge bond. So they redoing the whole entire field, and he said you can't play for 2 years. So we were kind of in a crunch. It's like what was one of those times where teams are starting to reach out to us for scheduling, and we're scrambling about a field. So we had practice at Clawson. Kathy had hooked us up with the practices there. She gave us a great deal on it. And we had a reserve team at the time. We played a match there. And as we're sitting there, Theo and I were like, you know, this is actually it's a cozy venue. It's smaller. The stands are a little bit more cozier. And 700 people at Royal Oak is a lot different than 700 people at Clawson, just because the stands are massive. They're almost like too big. So long story short, I reached out back to Clawson Parks and Rec, and they said that they'd be open and willing. I think it was 2 weeks ago, there was a presentation to Parks and Rec, and from what I hear, that went very well, the meeting itself. But overall, we want to get involved with the community as much as possible. It's a fun event for everyone. Last year we had food trucks. Not sure if we're going to do food trucks this year. It might just be our own little operation where it's more what you could say, it's more niche based. So sometimes with the food trucks, it's a little bit harder getting in, getting out. Some people might not like it, maybe too high pricing. So that's something that we're contemplating right now. But overall, it's a really fun time. I mean, for us, like, we love it for the soccer aspect, but seeing some kid that you have no idea who he is come up to you with face paint on, asking for an autograph, it's really cool. But we do it. We connect with all sorts of businesses, all sorts of schools. You don't even have to be a soccer fan to enjoy our games. Like, you can come to the game and there'd be some guy screaming in the corner, one guy with a drum, a couple kids running around. So it's not where don't expect to come to the game and just going to be a bunch of kids running around. There's a lot from all ages that are there. My friends go to the game. My parents go to the game. Little kids go to the game. My grandparents went to the game all the time. It's fun. It's a really good time, and we think that the whole city will be enjoying. Will enjoy the experience. All we ask is just to kind of open your arms and embrace us, because growing with you, it'll just help us grow in the future. So that's really it.
Got some gifts for you as well.
Oh, thank you. Gifts are always good.
Thank you.
Very nice, thank you.
Appreciate it.
So if there's any connections, if there's a point of contact that we should be, contacting all the time, just to, get us into the schools, get us in with businesses. I'm not sure if that's through the chamber or whatnot. We're basically, this is our third time starting from scratch. First Rochester, and we know a lot of mayors now and council members. We just want to stay somewhere. So whatever help that you can do for us will be beneficial, because we're going to reciprocate it right back.
I had a few questions.
Yeah.
Is there a team name? Is there several teams? Is there a team mascot?
So we know that a few times it's been called actually the Oakland County League, but actually it's just us. We're Oakland County Football Club, OCFC football, European football, soccer. There's a team in Toledo, a team in Indianapolis, Muskegon. So we're a Midwest region, our division. There's actually a total of 20 teams just in our region, but it's a nationwide league. We don't have a mascot right now. So there's actually, on March the 1st, we have an event in Royal Oak. This was set up before. So, we have an event in Royal Oak where a lot of teams in Europe do this. They are establishing a supporter trust. So us three, we've given up a portion of ownership that goes to this supporters trust. It's a nonprofit organization. We've already filed everything for EIN, all that stuff. Like, through the state, it's all registered. And what happens is basic fans can actually buy into this supporters trust, in which they'll actually have an equity share in the club. So instead of just coming to the games being, this is my club, like, you come to the games, you own a portion of the club. While that percentage is really minuscule, you own more of Oakland County FC than you'll ever own of any other team. So if you're familiar with football, think of like how the Green Bay Packers do it. They have ownership shares. So on March 1st, we do have that event. It would be great to see you guys there if you can promote the event, where we're anticipating a fairly large turnout. Food specials, we're going to talk about the season. It's going to be the first opportunity to buy shares. It's just our own way to we're solely focused on grassroots. We're really trying to build this from the bottom up and really getting everyone involved, as opposed to a big corporate guy just shelling out money and building a team. So,
How many games will you be playing at Clawson Field this season?
it looks like right now it's going to be around 7 games. There might be an 8th one comes in there. And no, we do not have a mascot. And back to my point, that possibly would be one of the things that you can go vote for. So when you get an ownership share in the trust, you actually get to vote for, what uniforms we wear, what our mascot might be, a custom scar that we have for the year, and on top of that, you get invited to certain events. And then come the second year, we're going to have a board. There's going to be a leader of the board, and then they're going to have their meetings, and they're going to come back to us if they want to see something change at the game. So essentially, like, there's a separate voice of the club, which is something unique they do in Europe a lot. It's actually saved a lot of clubs in Europe, and now they're huge. So,
Who cleans up after you?
we clean up. We actually have a group of, right now it's already at 8 interns. Every year we have around like 10 interns. We've never had this many interns this early in the game. We do all our own cleaning. So the us 3 owners, our girlfriends, all our interns. We actually have a director of operations, which I don't know if he's here yet. He's there. This is our director of operations, Dan. He actually heads up all of the interns. We actually have events like scheduled throughout this off season where we set up booths. We're taking email addresses. We're taking pictures of the kids. But yeah, we take care of all of that when it comes to cleanup. We do our best. We do our best. Once in a while we'll leave some like zip ties or whatnot, but there's just only so much that you can. I mean, by the time like you get out of there, you're just like, I want to get out. I'm not into that.
How many people are in the club as far as players?
Players-wise, well, last year we had, because we had a reserve team, it was around 45 to 50. This year it's going to be around like 30 players. So 30 players with a couple of assistant coaches, a head coach, goalkeeper coach. We have a scout. So it's fairly decently large organization for sports.
That's all I had. Thank you very much.
What days of the weeks what days of the week will you be using the facility?
As of right now, Tuesday and Thursdays it's going to be practices.
Okay.
So we have it like in the later evening. So we never have to interfere with anyone having practices or whatnot. And our games are generally going to take place on both Friday nights and Saturday nights. We don't have any Sunday games scheduled unless a big, huge team wants to play us and we have a Sunday available. But we kind of strayed away from the Sundays and left the Fridays available.
And what times?
Friday nights, and it's going to be around 7:30 start time. So we'll need the field like around 5 for setup, and then we'll clean up and we'll get out of there no later than 10 o'clock.
When do they start? When's the season start?
Our first home game right now, or our first home game is going to be May the 12th against Indianapolis.
How's that work with our scheduling? Everything's good?
She shared a calendar with me so I can see what time the track practice is at. So if you guys ever have any questions, I do have a couple business cards. We want to get involved as much as possible. You can give us a call. We're really open when it comes to phone calls. We all have our own jobs, but we always make time for our passion. Like, we put more work into this than we almost what we do at real jobs, but don't tell
We might want to scratch that from the tape for your
Yeah,
employer's sake.
What is needed from us tonight, Kathy?
We're all set.
They just wanted to introduce themselves to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
this is more
great.
so just a friendly introduction, and if you guys can pass along any tips on how we can infiltrate the city, that'd be great. Because the season is approaching, we want to get out there as much as possible, hand and foot. So
Well, I'm sure
was
the
a-
club's going to participate in the 4th of July parade, right?
let's do it. Yeah,
Absolutely,
let's do it.
absolutely.
Anything
Build a
before
float,
then,
please.
we're open.
I was a soccer mom on the travel team, so I know how passionate and how much she still plays. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a great sport.
Thank you.
I appreciate you choosing Clawson. It's really exciting.
We're excited. We're excited. All of you at the game. Thank you.
Thank you.
you.
The next item on the agenda is discussion on the proposed planning unit development for 11 Walter.
So, good evening, Mayor and Council. The last time this came before you, you'll recall the owners of the property were here and they pitched their proposed development, which is a 14-unit, 14-efficiency unit cargo container building at this site on 11 Walpur. There's an existing home on the property right now. And you asked at that time that the department prepare a memo kind of explaining some of the issues, both with the development and identifying the process for a PUD to move forward in the city. As I understand it, the owners are still interested. I mean, they own the property, so they've closed on it. So they're going to continue to be interested in doing something with it, and they've kind of been waiting in the background for guidance as to whether this is an idea that the city could support before making any kind of formal submittal. And so, in response to your request, the department prepared a memo that I think was in your packets dated February 6th. I'll go through just kind of the high points of that, and then we'll be Susie and I are here to answer any questions that you have about it. So again, the property is at 11 Walpur. The proposed project, as a refresher, is a 3-story, 14-efficiency unit cargo or container house in development at that location. The lot is kind of longer on the Main Street side, and so it's oriented toward Main Street with as laid out originally with a parking lot on the south end. The master plan calls out the proposed master plan update calls out that area as being intended for the CMD district, which is one we created with the text amendments that were part of the downtown changes, form-based downtown changes. That has not, no property has been zoned CMD up to this point, but that's what's indicated for that property. It was actually designated that in the downtown master plan, which has already been adopted, even though it's not really in the downtown. So some information on their proposal. Anticipated rents are in the $1,100 to $1,200 range. Currently, the taxes, property taxes on that parcel for the year are $1,779 based on their estimate of improvement costs, including the land of $1.5 million. That would be a $750,000 taxable value. You'd end up with $53,000 and change in property taxes if it were so improved. So a very substantial increase over the existing property tax revenue for that parcel. Obviously, the city's piece of that is relatively smaller, but that's the total tax bill. So other issues related to the development, there were kind of two things that would need to happen for it to be possible. There's some excess right-of-way along Main Street. As you can see in the memo, it's a 6.6 foot by 171 foot strip that is excess along there that they would need to be able to make their project work. So the city would have to agree to sell that to them or convey that to them in order to make it possible. And then the big issue that has been identified both when they presented to Planning Commission and when they came before council is the parking, off-street parking. There's one space for every unit. That is what the zoning ordinance currently provides for efficiency units. However, I don't think when that was written, it envisioned a project that would be all efficiency units, right? The idea was that you would have a mixture of units and therefore it would average out. And so since they're coming in with all efficiency units, that's an issue. And as a PUD, that's an issue that you can deal with because it's not a by right sort of development. And so that is something that they will have to solve, either through finding other land that could also be used for off-street parking, or if they could convince you that there's sufficient public parking available for that. So the PUD as a tool, you have not used it to date in Clawson. It's been in the ordinance for a while. There are a couple of instances where it's been proposed, but none where it's come to fruition. So it would be a new procedure for you. It's not a new procedure in zoning. It's got a long history. It goes back several decades in zoning law. And in essence, it's a way to inject flexibility into planning that might not otherwise be available in exchange for certain things that make it worth giving up that flexibility, right? And we go through those here and later in the memo in terms of the eligibility criteria for a PUD. So redevelopment options for the property, as it sits, assuming, well, even without the master plan update being adopted, because it has already been designated in the downtown master plan, if they were to seek rezoning to CMD at this time, that would be consistent with the master plan in terms of a rezoning of the property. It's currently zoned B1, which is local business. So the house on the property is a nonconformity now. It's not the house is not a permitted use. And I think it's been vacant for a while now, so it's probably not a use that can be reestablished on the property either. So the problem they have two problems with just using the CMD district. One is that even though it allows 30-foot buildings, which this is intended to be, it does not allow 3-story buildings. It allows only 2.5-story buildings as a maximum height. So they would need a variance if they were to proceed in CMD from the limitation on 2.5 stories, because their intent is to have 3 stories. And then the other problem is that though in CMD multifamily residential is a principal permitted use, it is to have a liner use on the first floor. So the liner use means that it's something other than residential units facing the street on the first floor for a depth of 20 feet going into the building. So that could be a number of things. It could be commercial, it could be office, it could be an aspect of the use that is not an actual residential home, like a gym or a lobby or something like that. But because of the nature of what they're proposing, being a container home development, it's less practical for them to try to provide a liner use. It's not something they absolutely rule out, though. That is something that they have indicated they could perhaps do. So then, the eligibility criteria, as I mentioned, there are 5 that your ordinance set forth. It doesn't really say that they all have to be met, but I think the implication of the ordinance is that they all should be met. And so I'll just run through those briefly and comment on them. A recognizable and substantial benefit. So this is something that you can get through the PUD process that you couldn't otherwise get through traditional zoning, right? And so if you were to find that this is a unique type of development and that the ordinance doesn't allow the flexibility necessary to make this kind of thing happen, you know, that might be true. We talked about the obstacles that exist with using CMD to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish. Again, the kind of housing, as we talked about back when they were here, it's efficiency units, but it's intended to be pretty high end, I would say, for young professionals. It is in walking distance of the downtown. You might view that as a benefit to the businesses downtown in terms of inserting foot traffic, and particularly in people who probably aren't going to be cooking in their units very often, you know, in close proximity to some of the businesses downtown. You know, those are the things you would consider in trying to decide whether or not eligibility criteria 1 is met. Number 2 is the capacity of public services in general. I don't think there's an issue with that. Again, parking would be the thing that they would have to solve. That is sort of a glaring issue as it has presently been laid out. Number 3, consistency with the master plan and zoning ordinance. Well, it's an amendment to the zoning ordinance. The PUD district in your ordinance, they're done different ways, but in your ordinance, it's like a rezoning of property. So it's its own zoning district. But the master plan, as we talked about, contemplates multiple family in that area. There's some language in the master plan update specifically about allowing for residential use within the 14-mile and Main Street corridors in order to provide people, foot traffic to businesses in those areas and encourage more pedestrian-friendly environment in those areas. We cited some statistics in there from the survey also that we felt were kind of consistent with what is being proposed here. Number 4, economic and neighborhood impact. Notably, it should not impede the use or development of surrounding lots. The concern, of course, will be in allowing an appropriate transition to the existing residential around it. For the corridor, it would seem like it's going to be beneficial to the corridor for the reasons that I've stated in terms of putting foot traffic there. Keep in mind that the current zoning is commercial, right? And so the fact that a house happens to sit there today, a house is not going to sit there in the future because that use has been abandoned and it's a non-conforming use. And it's not, that zoning, single family, would not be consistent with the master plan for the area along Main Street. And then number 5, redevelopment. And so there are several circumstances in which you allow a property to be eligible for PUD treatment, and there's really only a few, right? So it's a brownfield, it's functionally obsolete, or it's a non-conforming use currently. So this site is a non-conforming use currently. Could be argued it's functionally obsolete as well. So it would meet the number 5 eligibility criteria. Finally, we went through the process that a PUD goes through It's no different in the front end than any other rezoning. They would submit an application after meeting with the development team for rezoning. The difference here is that right at the beginning of the process, you have a site plan that is part of the application package, so you know exactly what's being proposed. That site plan is in essence kind of like a zoning district onto itself, right? That site plan becomes a set of regulations that are applicable to that particular PUD. And you have a public hearing before the planning commission. Everybody within 300 feet, and by way of newspaper notification, everybody in the city gets notice of that public hearing. Planning commission conducts a public hearing in the usual way. After the public hearing and after study and working on the site plan, the planning commission makes a recommendation to you about the proposal, either to approve, deny, or approve with conditions. Plan unit development is a conditional district, so you can attach conditions to it that would be specific to the development of that property. Number 4 comes to you, and you would, if you're going to consider it favorably, consider it at 2 readings, because it is an amendment to the zoning map and therefore to the zoning ordinance. 5 is a development agreement, which is also something that's unique to the PUD process, which agreement then will run with the land and set forth those regulations that have been negotiated as part of the review process that are specific to that property. And then number 6, the map has changed, and number 7, the developer has to record that agreement and bring evidence of its recording back to the city clerk for our records. So that's kind of the memo. As I say, we're here also to answer questions either about the memo or about the idea, or really anything else you want to ask us questions about if you want.
I'm going to clarify for me. Only 2 variances will be required for this property?
If
How
it
how
was,
many are required?
so if it were, as it's drawn, if it were rezoned to CMD, it would need 1 or 2 variances. One would be the number of floors, as I say, not the overall height, because it is proposed at 30 feet, but it's 3 stories, so they'd need a variance for that. They either would or would not need a variance from the liner use requirement, depending on how they designed the project. I think they've indicated they possibly could comply with that. That's if it were zoned CMD. As a PUD, there are no variances in a PUD. PUDs, as I say, set their own rules, and you would write the set of regulations that you deemed appropriate for this PUD if that was the process they were going to follow.
So there's no variance because now they're moving a building closer to the sidewalk than is typical. And I bring that up because Rochester Road, we're trying to change the landscape over there and make it more walk-friendly. And the way that the buildings are set and a lot of cement and you're real close to things, it seems like we're doing that with this proposal on Main Street.
Well, that's what the CMD district contemplates, right? So the CMD district is more flexible than city center, but it's similar. So city center has what's called a build-to line, which is the right-of-way line. And that's where buildings are supposed to be built, basically, at the sidewalk. In the distinction between that and CMD is really only that there's a build-to zone. And the build-to zone in CMD goes anywhere from 0 feet from the right-of-way to, I don't remember, but it's, a number of feet, 20 or 25 feet back from the right-of-way. The front of the building must be within that zone. It's kind of the opposite of what you think of in most of your zoning districts, where you have a minimum setback. In form-based districts like these, you have a maximum setback. In other words, the building must be at the street or in some cases within so many feet of the street. That's what's intended, to bring everything up to the street and keep the activity at the street level, in order to encourage a downtown type of environment.
But that's not what it's zoned currently because it's not part of the downtown currently.
Correct, but it's zone B1, so if it were to be developed in the B1 district, I don't think B1, I don't have it right in front of me, but I don't think B1 has a maximum setback either. I think that allows for zero setback, but it wouldn't require it to be in that location.
And it wouldn't, and I guess because it's this piece of property that we're talking about, we'd have to give up. So it changes it because they've now added what's current city property to that frontage.
That, if you were to look at the property, it doesn't look like that should be part of the right-of-way, right? It's beyond the sidewalk. We're not talking about moving the sidewalk closer to the street or anything like that. The sidewalk would stay where it was. That property is excess property, excess right-of-way that's, for whatever reason, I don't recall what the reason the city ever owned it was, but it's actual separately described tax parcel on the property side of the sidewalk that is 6.5 feet. That's how wide it is, that the city owns. And they would want to acquire, I don't know if they have to acquire it to make it work, but they would want to acquire that. If you remember their renderings when they were here before, I don't remember if they had them at council, they had them at planning commission. They had this lavender garden out front that they wanted to do, and so that's what would take place in that area.
Oh, and I had one last question, and then I'll give up the floor here, sorry. Did we add the language to our master plan after this request was made, or was that already part of the plan?
No, it was already part of the plan. And as I say, in terms of this being designated CMD, that goes back to the downtown master plan. For whatever reason, they designated land even out of the downtown as part of that process. I wasn't involved with that process, of course.
Has the owner given any indication of what their plans would be if we decide this is not something that we desire in our city?
Susie.
I've had some brief conversations with them about it. They would likely leave it as a rental for right now, but it is not outside the realm of possibility that they would sell it to another developer. They've contemplated redeveloping it as a commercial property, even though it's not really in their wheelhouse, but that's something that they would be comfortable doing.
Greg, have they said anything about buying the house behind them?
They have talked to Cindy, and they have discussed with her what their conceptual plans would be for the future. They don't seem eager to push it at the moment with Cindy. She's been, like I said, she's been made very well aware of what their plans are, but they're trying to be respectful of her and kind of where she's at in life right now.
I like the concept. I like everything about it. I'd like to see it pushed back a little bit more from the sidewalk, but the parking is going to be an issue there. And like I told the guys when they're here last time, I said, if you can get that house behind you, that'd be fantastic. I think it would fit in there fine. But other than that, I can see what's going to happen right now. You're going to have people parking on the street, out front, parking down the side street, and that's not our rules. We have our rules and we're set with them, and that's the way it's got to be. So
You said if we did the PUD, we could set the ordinances that pertain to that PUD, right? So we could stipulate different parking arrangements or the space between the front that Mayor Woolley was talking about.
Correct.
So that would be part of doing the PUDs. We could put all of the things that we're concerned about into something like that.
Right, and those things then would go into the development agreement that would get recorded, and that'd run with that real estate going forward.
For anyone who wanted to use it going forward.
Yeah, forever.
And the zoning board, they don't get involved in this at all? That's not something that they make a decision on?
So the planning commission, does the initial study and makes a recommendation to you, and then it's council's decision.
So the zoning board is not involved
The
at all?
ZBA is not involved in this at all. In fact, ZBAs universally are not involved in PUDs. They have no authority in a PUD.
But if we didn't do the PUD option?
Then they would probably have, if they wanted to do exactly what they're proposing, they'd probably need to go to the ZBA.
And they would start there.
Right.
Just a couple comments or observations. I do think it's premature to expect some kind of opinion from council. There's quite the process that needs to be followed. And I'd have to review any recommendation from the planning commission before giving any kind of opinion on this matter. I will say that it's a little concerning when the developers here, when they were here in November, I tried to find the exact phrase they used. I couldn't with the time I had given myself, but something along the lines of this is going to be a learning experience for them. And that does not instill confidence. Just throwing that out there. There was one step in the process, state and county approval. I just want to make sure that that is sought and obtained as well. That's spelled out in the ordinances as part of the process. And yeah, I mean, parking is obviously, I don't know if we increased the need for parking there, the requirement for parking, I don't know if they could comply with that, given their layout, so.
Well, they'd have to drop units, obviously.
Yeah. But those are all the comments I have.
Okay. I think it's not looking for a decision at this time, just presentation of the information.
Yeah, we're here just to answer your questions that you asked us to address before.
So the developers will be pursuing the PUD following the process laid out in ordinance?
Well, we'll explain your comments to them. They'll have to make their decision about whether or not they want to roll the dice with that, right?
You mentioned that the property's vacant and it could, so
Is
is there
it-
somebody renting
I don't
it
know.
currently?
I might be
Can it-
wrong. Is there somebody living in there right now?
When let's see, I spoke to the property owner, it's been a little while, but I believe they were allowing the woman from whom they purchased the property, they were allowing her to stay in the property, I think until the beginning of this month, was kind of when they, because they'd like to, obviously, they're gonna decide to do this, they're gonna have to move fairly quickly. So I believe they were gonna let her stay in the house until February, but then after that, they were gonna start moving forward with whichever process. So I'm not entirely sure if it's currently vacant, but if it isn't, it will be soon.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the consideration of approving the 2018-2022 Parks and Recreation Master Plan for the City of Clawson. Kathy Leanhouse, thank you for coming.
I think you all got a copy of the revised Parks and Recreation Master Plan. We took into consideration the comments that were made at the last public hearing, and McKenna was able to incorporate all the changes and corrections that we needed. And so this is the document that we would like to submit to the DNR moving forward as our master plan for the next 5 years. We did take out the major big projects, and they're in there, but they're not assigned a year. We are required by the DNR to assign our projects a year. We're not married to it. We don't have to do it. They just like you to kind of put a year down there. But we didn't feel that it was possible in the next 5 years to do some of the large major projects because the funding is just not there. But we did include it in the plan just in case, I don't know, we win the lottery, somebody donates a lot of money to us. So they are in there, but not assigned a year. So we're just come to council now to get your approval to move forward this. We need you to officially approve it, and then we'll start the process of submitting it to the DNR.
Just to be clear, we don't play the lottery with any of our
No, not
our
with
city
any,
funds.
none of the city funds go into the lottery, no. I was thinking maybe a resident who might, hit it big, who likes the parks, make a major donation.
I wanted to ask specifically, how are those residents' concerns and suggestions included? Was it just based on the eliminating the
Well,
splash pad
I
from a
think
year?
pulling the splash pad out from a specific year and explaining why the top requests were not assigned a year, just because it's not realistic at this point, without going out and asking residents for more money, which we are not going to do. That's not our intent at all. At this point, they were generous with us with that last bond, and we're thrilled with that. And I think we tried to address in the final version that we really want to focus on maintaining what we have and moving forward sort of in baby steps or in a phase of trying to get our accessibility where it should be, or at least closer to ideal, and just really trying to upkeep what we have before we keep adding more things to our to-do list. As you know, everybody would like all those things, but the reality is funding's not there. And even if we go out for grants, which are wonderful, they're usually matching. So either way, we have to come up with some funds, and it just doesn't seem realistic at this point for us to be able to do that. But we have wonderful parks, and we want to make sure they stay in the best condition that they can within the budget constraints that we have.
I did like the fact that we are committing to a turf maintenance program.
Yes, we are. Are there any other questions?
Thanks, Kathy.
Your Honor, I move the 2018-2022 Parks and Rec Master Plan for the City of Clawson be approved and filed with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources.
Support.
I guess we had all of our questions answered, so roll call, please.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a resolution to enter into an agreement with MDOT for the purpose of improving 14 Mile Road and Main Street, that intersection. So going from Gardner to Broadacre on Main and from Washington till Bellevue on 14 Mile. This was a grant, and so I believe the project is, I failed to print the page, but I think it was a $1.3 million project, and our portion is just shy of $400,000. Nothing.
Mayor, I move the resolution to enter into the Michigan Department of Transportation Contract 18-5036, job number 133394A, for the purpose of improvement to the 14-mile at Main intersection of the city of Clawson be approved. And further, to authorize City Manager Mark Pollock, the Director of Engineering Services, Harry Drinkwine, to sign the contracts for submission to MDOT, and Michael Smith, City Clerk.
Thank you. I'm glad I didn't have to amend that.
Support. I do have questions. I don't know if you're ready to answer anything for us, Chief. City Manager Mark Pollock is out of the office, but I assume this is not something that we currently have budgeted, correct? This is something that's going to have to be on our.
Mike believes it.
I thought it was part of the capital improvement plan.
I know we talked about it. I just couldn't remember if it made it into this
It's going to
year's
be
budget.
discussed at the bond funding on March 6th. That we're trying to roll this in with when we sell bonds to help pay for this for the financing.
Okay.
We were talking about that earlier to find out if it was actually was in the budget last year, and we think it was.
It's been a long discussed project.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we talked about it at length. I just couldn't remember what year it was going to make it into the budget. Spending $400,000 to get $800,000 is really what we're looking at here, so. Don't know how you don't do that.
Great deal, as far as I'm concerned. Oh, are we all set? Did somebody second that? Mm-hmm. Oh, roll call, please.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yes.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is consideration of the request by the Clawson Lions Club to hold their 20th annual Down on Main Street Car Show. Has it been 20 years? Long time. They submitted that the 20th annual car show will be on Saturday, August 11th, and they are requesting the Department of Public Works, the Police Department, to be authorized to work cooperatively with the Lions Club as they have in the past. Do we have a poster yet, Howie?
Oh, I guess, okay. What do you want to know? I've been doing it for 20 years, you know, and, actually, we don't use that much of the city's help, which is good. And we're looking forward to the 20th year and having a good time, and residents have come on out, and lately we've been getting a lot of the kids that are having their 50th or 45th school anniversaries come on out there, and have a good time. So come on down.
Madam Mayor, I move the request from the Clawson Lions Club to conduct its 20th annual Down on Main Street Car Show on Saturday, August 11th, 2018, be approved, and that Main Street be closed from approximately 8 o'clock a.m. to 7 o'clock p.m. on that day.
Support.
I've heard there's going to be good weather that day.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Kind of like,
as always.
kind of like my parade. It never rains on my parade, but
Right.
similar. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Olbrich,
Sorry, yes.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers.
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
and Councilmember Moffett.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda is to pay the bills.
Madam Mayor, I move to pay the bills.
Support?
Were there any questions on the bill that Mr. Anderson would like to answer? Roll call, please.
Mayor Woolley,
Yes.
Councilmember Ayers.
Yes.
Councilmember Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett,
Yes.
Councilmember Olbrich.
Yes.
City Attorney's report.
None other than at the end of the agenda, motion to go into closed session to discuss a legal opinion you've all received.
Thank you. City Manager's Harry's report.
The only information that Mr. Pollack would like me to pass on to the council and people is that the soccer facility is open and accepting drop-off materials. So that was the extent of the message that I was to relay tonight. So.
You related excellently. Thank you very much.
Garbage to me.
Is there any unfinished business? New business? I have nothing. The floor is open for public discussion. Just come up to the microphone and state your name and your address, please.
My name is Joseph Boldovich, 352 Highland Avenue. In light of that tragic incident in Florida last week, I just was wondering who's responsible for the security at our schools, and is it adequate to prevent this from happening? I mean, I know Clawson is a little city with the big heart, but we can't have our heads in the sand, I don't think. And the idea that it can't happen here, I think, has been shot to you know where. I just wondered, I went by the school today just to see if I could walk in. Of course, I didn't know the schools were closed. I'm a grandfather now, my kids are all done, but in the past, to vote, I know you just walk in the door, you know, and I don't know about Sean, you know, whether you can just now walk in the door, but are backpacks being checked? It's the students that are unfortunately doing most of these things, and we can't wait for the federal government to pass AR-15 gun bans. That's going to take, how long is that going to take? Or the state of Michigan. I just wonder if there's anything we should be doing to protect our students so that they can feel safe while they're in school Thursday. And if something temporary till something better can be done. I mean, I don't know what, I'm not a security expert, but I have no idea, but can people just come walking into the school?
I can speak as my children attend the school district here, and you have to be buzzed in, and it can be only done
Always?
at the front door, correct. And I know that the school is very committed. They do lockdown drills, and they specifically on a regular basis. And I know that they recently sent out some new ideas that they're going to be working with the local police department with some new ideas and some new things to work on.
Are the
school
backpacks
systems.
checked? Is there metal detectors? I hate to think that we've come to this, but I think we have to realize that we have come to this. Just like getting on an airplane now requires a whole different procedure. It's unfortunate, but I think maybe we have to, again, it can't happen here, but they thought the same thing in Florida, and I'm not saying it's a matter of time, because that's very dire, and I don't think that is the case, but I just want to make sure that our students feel safe, and I think metal detectors may have to be something, I mean, if a handgun in those backpacks, it's not going to do the damage of an AR-15, of course, but one person shot. Just today, wasn't there a student who committed suicide in a bathroom somewhere in Metro Detroit? Fortunately, well, not fortunately, but he used the gun on himself and not other students, but the gun got in the school. I think it can't be that complicated to keep the guns out of the school. And if that means our students are going to be a little inconvenienced while they're crying for safety, something to be done, I think we, as the adults and the citizens, and I know that as a taxpayer, I'd be willing to pay for more security. And I'm sure if the residents were addressed with the issue that, we have to install some kind of metal detectors, or I don't know, if I go to the emergency room at Beaumont, I got to empty my pockets before I can go in, and this is the emergency room. I don't know. Again, it's sad that it's come to this, but I think maybe it has.
Unfortunately, I mean, one of the things you brought up, I mean, the financing and funding is different. So the school's funding is different from the city's. But I know that as a small community, it's much easier to work together, and there's those relationships. So I know that the principal at the school, or the student, what's her specific title?
That lady, the superintendent.
No, I'm talking about Miss Horn, who's the student advocate there. Her husband's on the police department, so there's communication going on there real closely. And like I said, I know that the school system is very committed, and just recently sent an email out talking about some of the ideas that they have working with the local police department. So, but your concerns are warranted.
Well, I know the wheels of government often move slowly, but I think this should be something that, again, we can't wait too much longer, I don't think, for something a little more. Again, can right now a student walk in with his backpack with a gun in it?
Yes.
I think that's something we have to change. Again, sad, but all right, I've said. You are probably all anxious to go home and have dinner.
I'd like to also add to it, just for a little bit of peace of mind.
This is Harry
there.
Anderson, our police chief.
Yeah. We do have, we have access to the camera systems in the schools. They're in our PD, where it's in our detective bureau. Yeah, it's live footage. And we have officers that are versed and have connections in the school. If something was to happen, they could get in and have access to that.
But that's,
I can
if something
also
were
tell
to
you
happen, that's already too late. I think we got to keep the gun from getting in the school in the first place.
The only time that I could say that we have had situations in the past where backpacks have been checked, but that's generally when there's some type of a threat or something along those lines.
I'm just saying, maybe those days are over.
And I can add that that here in Oakland County, the Clawson Police Department's a member of an association of multi-agencies that are in a consortium called OakTAC. And what we do is we train on a regular basis to respond rapidly to those type of situations, so that everybody from another department, say I have two guys on the road, a guy from Troy or a guy from Madison Heights or Berkeley or Royal Oak, we're all on the same page as far as training and the way you go at the source, because unfortunately you have to get to that person as quick as possible to end that threat. So I can tell you there are things in place, like the mayor said, our officers work with the schools in lockdown procedures where the kids are shown a procedure to do in case something like that happens. So we in this area, you should feel fortunate because we are ahead of the curve over a lot of other areas here in Oakland County.
Well, I guess my final thought would be, I think maybe it's time for metal detectors so that gun can't, because by the time everybody responds, 5 students could be shot, and then it's already happened. Even if one, even just the kid in the bathroom in the other school, just how, again, I don't know what to say, but sad that it's come to this, but I think it has come to this. And I'll let you guys go. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you,
coming
Mr.
in
Wilbur.
today.
Sharing, thank you.
If I could add as well, City Council here really has no jurisdiction in our schools directly. Well, I mean, we're happy to give you a forum and to discuss it with you, but the school board has jurisdiction over what happens inside the school buildings and on school property. So that'd be something else that you could.
strings, right?
No,
No,
not for the schools.
completely
no.
separate.
Completely separate?
Yeah, it's a
They
separate
got more
budget.
money than we do.
So when is the school board meet?
It's the third Monday of each month.
Third
The third
Monday
Monday
of each
No,
month.
it's over at the middle school,
Third Monday.
third Monday of every month. So the next one is,
Was that yesterday? No.
it
Was that
was,
yesterday?
actually, it was last Monday, because it was where Daniel School is.
Well, again, you guys do have some sway, I'm sure, with people. And again, I just think, I don't know what the students are thinking when they're coming back on Thursday, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there's gonna be some certain amount of fear. There's children, you know, basically, young adults, whatever, but it's just sad that you want them to feel safe in that building, and guns gotta be kept out. If that means inconvenience of the backpacks going through metal detectors, at least I think they'd feel safer. And I don't want to see us become a paramilitary society, but we want to keep them safe.
Would there be any prudence to
Kumbaya
having
days
increased
of when I went
police
to school
presence
are
on that day
gone.
they go back? Having a car in the parking lot or someone in the parking
Come
lot?
up to the microphone, if you're going to talk.
I'm sorry.
I was just asking, if there was any prudence to having increased police presence. I didn't know they were out, but if they come back on Thursday, the kids may be scared, and they may take comfort to see a police officer, in the parking lot or present or whatever they do.
That's probably a good idea,
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
that might be something to do,
I
at
know
least
our
to alleviate
officers
some
are-
concerns.
Are pretty busy around the elementary schools, they're always out
Right.
mingling with the kids and everything like that.
But at least
on a
for the high
regular
school and middle
basis, so-
school, maybe that
right.
day, just to,
Yep.
I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about the increased probability of copycats because it's in the news.
That's what
and that
this
sort of
is.
thing.
It's copycats.
So if we were to, on Thursday, maybe even Friday, have increased presence, have someone there to sort of allay the fears and change anyone's mind who thinks about doing anything stupid might be a good idea, eh?
That's a good idea.
Okay, well, thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming in, appreciate it.
Thank
Anyone else? Well, public discussion is now closed. I get a motion to go into closed session?
Is the closed session part of this meeting, or is it a separate meeting?
But we have to make the motion to move, so Madam Mayor, I move that we move to closed session.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ayers?
Yeah.
Councilmember Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Moffett?
Yes.
Councilmember Ober?
Yes.
Mayor Woolley?
Yes. What that means is we'll be going privately and discussing some attorney information, and then we'll come back out here and end the city council meeting for the evening. Thank you very much for your time.